Hey, Howell here. What I want to do today is I want to talk about the song, particularly the lyrics of Nantucket Sleighride. Nantucket Sleighride, I believe that's how it's pronounced, by a psychedelic rock band of the late 60s and early 70s called Mountain. I believe the song was released I think it's 1971, Nantucket Sleighride. And it became their famous song that they couldn't get away with not playing it every night when they were playing. I originally uploaded this video with the riff in the background at the beginning, literally 1 minute. And it came up as a copyright warning that, whatever that meant. So I'm just going to be doing it again without the music. And the song was written by the bass player and the singer, and I'm going to try and pronounce his name right. I've got it written down here. I think it's Pappalardi. I will from now on be calling him Felix, or Felix the bass player, and then his girlfriend Gail Collins, good girlfriend at the time. And now the riff, which I'm not allowed to play, was the theme tune to a news program called Weekend World, and I think it was on Sunday night, and I used to come down every weekend and watch it. The news program was of no interest to me. I was quite young, but I always wanted to know who it was. And then somebody said, "Oh, that's Leslie West. It's a band called Mountain. It's a song called Nantucket Sleighride." And I eventually went out and bought it. And I've seen Leslie West, not with Mountain, on his own, playing it live in the Colston Hall. Now, what's interesting, it's Nantucket Sleighride to Owen Coffin. I'll explain who Owen Coffin is later. But it's also a song. Owen Coffin was a whaler. He was a sperm hunting whaler, yeah. And it's also about Felix, the bass player's girlfriend. So he had Gail Collins, but he had another girlfriend called Robin Marie. Now, Owen, and it's like a juxtabox of the two people, which is quite interesting. Now, if we have a look at it, begins with "Goodbye, little Robin Marie. Don't try following me. Don't cry, little Robin Marie, because you know I'll be coming home soon." So this is probably a reference to Felix, the bass player, going on tour and having to tell Robin Marie. And then the next verse is, "My ship's leaving on a 3-year tour. Next tide will take us from shore on a search for the mighty sperm whale," which is obviously going to be a reference to Owen Coffin. Now, the story about Owen Coffin, he was a young 18-year-old sperm hunting whaler on an island off Massachusetts called Nantucket. I think that's how you pronounce it. In the 19th century, and the commander of that ship was his older cousin called George Pollard, and they can't find any whales in the sea. And eventually they do find one who knows what they're doing, and so rams the boat several times, causing it to sink. And the crew then escape to smaller boats with their supplies, with 2 months' supplies. And all the islands in the area are either no good because they haven't got resources, or they're known for cannibalism. And some of the crew take a chance and escape to one of these islands and manage to get eventually rescued. But in January 1821, the survivors decided to eat the dead, which is kind of normal practice within the maritime. If your only means of survival is eating the dead, then so be it. Now, 4 remained, including Pollard and Owen Coffin, and so they had to draw straws. Number 1, to see who was going to be shot, which was Owen Coffin, and number 2, to see who was going to be the shooter. Now, George Pollard, I believe, wasn't the shooter, and he certainly wasn't drawn to be shot. And the story goes that he offered to take his younger cousin Owen Coffin place and be shot himself. But they basically, Owen Coffin was shot and they ate him. Now the worst thing is that when they were finally rescued, and they were, George Pollard then has to go to Owen Coffin's mother to tell him what had happened, which is probably the worst thing to hear, that your son has been shot and ate. And then the lyrics return back to Robin Marie. They go, and I know you're the last true love I'll ever meet. And then it returns back to the whale hunting, with a reference from Moby Dick. It says, with Starbucks sharpening his harpoon. Now, this is a reference to Moby Dick. So in Moby Dick, in the novel, Moby Dick, there's two references. There's two main characters. So there's Starbuck and there's Ahab. And Ahab represents chaos or emotion. And Starbuck represents order or logical, rational thinking. Now, I wonder whether Felix, the bass player, is behind the part about Robin Marie and the music. And Gail Collins was behind the reference to Moby Dick. That's just a thought. Now, Leslie West, the guitarist, he didn't like the song originally. When he was presented it, when he was living in London, he was presented it. And he said it was too hard to play. There were kind of fiddly bits everywhere. But I'm sure that he must have written that famous riff that I'm not allowed to play. But he later loved it, because it is. I mean, I've learned it on the guitar, and it is a tricky song. But in 1983, in a sort of fight in an apartment in New York, Gail Collins shot Felix, the bass player, with a derringer and a handgun. And I think, I don't know whether she went to prison or not, but I think the charge she got was accidental homicide. Yeah, accidental homicide. So when I was learning it as a song, and then I realised it was about Owen Coffin, the opening part of it, the opening licks that Leslie West plays on his guitar, blew me away, because as you'll hear on the guitar, he's trying to emulate the sound of a whale. Let's listen to it. There's a whale there. I'm going to stop that there so I don't get another copyright warning or whatever it was. And so thank you so much for joining me on my talk of Mountain Nantucket Sleighride to Owen Coffin by the psychedelic American rock band, I think released in about 1971. So thank you so much for joining me.